Internet, and welcome once again to the Free-to-Play Cast, episode 192, brought to you by MMOBomb.com, your home for all things free-to-play related. I'm your host, Mike Byrne, aka magicman. We've got news, we've got bombs, we've got finances up and finances down. We're gonna run through it all. This may be a little shorter because we're two-manning it today. It's me and Mr. Zach Sharps from Free-to-Play Weekly. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. Finals are over, so that's definitely good news. It frees up a lot of time, so
Yay!
definitely glad about that.
How did we do?
Good, very good. For how much I procrastinated, I actually nailed it. So,
A typical MMO player.
yep,
Procrastinate on the homework, but totally beat the Elder Scrolls Online.
damn straight, damn straight.
Well, we got news, so let's jump right into it. All right, let's kick it off with some financials. Everybody loves financials. And now we have NCSoft's Q2 financials. And before we get down to the nitty-gritty on how individual games did and individual regions did and things like that, Zach, anything jump off the page at you right off the bat that kind of surprised you, raised an eyebrow, maybe a little worrisome, maybe some good news on the overall picture of NCSoft's portfolio?
I would say good news, Blade and Soul. I expected a lot higher of a drop off than that, just because of the recent trends with free to play MMOs in general, where they do really well initially and then they drop off a good bit. But they didn't really drop. I mean, technically they did drop a lot. I think it's like what 10 billion Korean won or whatever they dropped off, but it's still not that bad. I mean, they're still holding up higher than most of the rest of the portfolio. So that was definitely surprising. Wildstar gaining was also very surprising too. So
Yeah, and so NCSoft's second quarter here, and by the way, when we're talking numbers on this particular topic, we're speaking in million Korean won. So for those of you in the United States, 1 million South Korean won equals about 900 bucks, 902, something like that on the current exchange. So keep in mind that, yeah, while the numbers sound really, really big, it's because we're dealing in million Korean won. Overall, I mean, NCSoft's got to be happy. It looks like the sales have kind of stayed steady for the last couple of quarters, but they cut their expenses in Q2, so overall, profits and net income are up. Yay! Way to go, NCSoft. Not surprisingly, I don't think that either of us on the line here, Lineage 1 still the big dog in the
crushing it.
portfolio. Just absolutely crushing it. 94 plus million Korean won on the Lineage front. And you can't even play that game in the West anymore. So that's strictly East. And damn, it is still killing it. That's up from 78 million Korean won last quarter, in Q1, to 94 plus million Korean won. That's a huge surprise to me that not only is it still that high to begin with, but it jumped again, almost another 20 million Korean won.
Yeah, that's Lineage. They love Lineage over there.
They
It's
do.
pretty insane. I've tried to check it out before it shut down over here, and I don't know. I just didn't wasn't able to get into it. So
I mean, that is like to me the quintessential Eastern
yeah,
MMORPG. When you
definitely.
talk about Eastern style MMORPGs, it's Lineage, even Lineage 2 to a certain extent. Although to me that game adopted a little bit of a Western flavor as development continued on that. Lineage 2 pretty much just holding steady, so nothing really big to talk about there. Ion took a drop. That doesn't surprise me, though, and I expect Ion to probably go back up in the next
Yeah.
quarter in Q3 now that the new expansion has dropped.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, if you look at Ion's just total graph, I mean, you see in Q2 it was up, and then Q3 it was down, then it rose a little bit more higher, and then it went back down, obviously, this quarter. So I think Ion's is one of those fluctuating titles in their portfolio. They expect it to fluctuate, especially with the expansions. It's not one of those like Lineage or Lineage 2, or even what basically Blade and Soul is sort of doing, where it's holding steady and it's not really something that's super reliable, as far as they know they're going to get a certain amount of income from it every single quarter. So yeah, it's I think the expansion will help for sure. I think next quarter it'll probably see another rise, if not a little tiny dip. So Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm showing everybody the charts from the report that show
Mhm.
Lineage, Lineage 2, Ion, Blade and Soul, Guild Wars 2, and Wildstar. Those last two we'll get into in just a minute because to me there's some eyebrows to be raised
Yes,
there. Blade and
definitely.
Soul still trending nicely. I mean, fourth quarter of 2015, 32 million Korean won. Quarter one, obviously a spike because the game releases in the West, and it's still up there, and they've got a ton of updates coming. We've got another update just around the corner we put on the website today for Blade and Soul, and seems like they're actually taking some of the feedback from the West seriously in the way that they're tweaking how weapons are upgraded and the cost of things. So one of the things you and I were very worried about with Blade and Soul, as far as what the end game becomes and RNG and money motivated, it seems like they are tweaking a little bit for a Western audience based on the feedback of this shit's taking too long. It's, I have to spend too much. The RNG. It's still not maybe ideal in my personal preference, but nice to see it being catered to the audience a little bit, right?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, at least they're not taking like the Black Desert route where they're just ignoring player feedback entirely
Every week, man.
every
Every
week.
week you got to get a Black Desert jab in.
I do. It was just like the Skyforge back in the day. When Skyforge first came out, I had to, give that a jab every single week because those are two games that just royally pissed me off. As far as I liked them, but they were run completely wrong. So
Every single
every
week
week,
there's a Black Desert online comment from you. You can't let it go. You can't let it go.
dude, I'm still so disappointed from that game.
I honestly never made it to what do they call it? The soft cap? The
Yeah,
what is it? 30?
it was 50.
50? I never even made it there on my wizard. I was done after like 15. I was out of here. Back to NCSoft though, big hit. So sales overall, while they're up in the Western markets, specifically the United States and the EU, those sales dipped by about a third. By about a third. So in the Western market, cut by a third. Mostly, surprisingly to me, because of Guild Wars 2.
Yep.
Guild Wars 2, their sales between Q1 and Q2 basically got cut in half. Q1 was like 30 million Korean won. Q2 is now 15 million Korean won. And I know there's been, and we've had Jason on the show in previous weeks talking about Guild Wars 2 and some of the things over the first half of the year that haven't been making exactly the best splashes as far as the Guild Wars 2 player base. But wow, to have the sales overall cut in half. That's an
Yep.
unhappy community, I think.
It's at a 1 year low,
Yeah.
which is and that low is way low compared to every other quarter, and that's extremely worrisome. And I really don't I would really like to know whether or not they included their $25 for Heart of Thorns sale in their financials this time around, or if that came after the finances were already sort of done and sort of ready to be posted, because you would think that that would give them a rise, especially like myself and my friends. We all bought Heart of Thorns, and I think a lot of probably other people have as well. The game still is very populated. I don't really see an issue as far as the community goes in that sense, but it really, I think, comes down to content and what they have for alternative motivation to give them money. Because looking at their cash shop, it's quite barren. I mean, from when the game launched to now, there's not really much that's changed in it, other than a few costumes here and there. And as far as a person like myself, I'm fine with that. I'm happy about that. But at the same time, as a business, you would think that they would want to throw out more and more costumes in there to try and get their current active player base to give them more money to rise up their finances. And it just doesn't really seem like they're doing that. And with the content drought that game's been going through, now of course it's being somewhat resolved with the Living Story Season 3. But even then, that's not enough, I don't think, to keep people really engaged in the game when they need them really engaged, especially after the drop off after Heart of Thorns. So
Yeah, and again, the numbers, it can be a little, we're talking about comparison of quarters. That's why we kind of stay away from the exact numbers. Just because, okay, put it in perspective, 15,000 million Korean won is about $13.5 million. So it's not like Guild Wars
yeah,
2 is totally closing down based on this quarter. But
Of course not.
when you make $27 million in
Yeah.
quarter one, and then you make $13.5 million in quarter two, that's a huge cause for concern. You lost half of your overall revenue streams in 3 months, basically. So definitely an eyebrow raiser on my side. Sure, I expected it to go down. I expect, just being in the business for as long as, okay, the expansion comes out, the sales go up, the next quarter they trickle down, the next quarter they trickle down, the next quarter they trickle down, unless you're WoW, and then 3 months after the expansion drops, they collapse because
Yep.
everybody leaves. But for the most part, trickle down, trickle down, trickle down, expansion boost back up, trickle down. But this is a huge drop.
Yeah, this
And
is it's
it isn't all that long when you look at it that Heart of Thorns launched. I mean, we're talking
oh
a
yeah.
little less than a year ago.
Yeah, and that's the worrisome thing. You see it quarter four's numbers, and you're like, wow, that's actually really good. You see quarter one, okay, normal drop off. And then you see that cut completely in half with quarter two of this year, and you're like, something is going wrong here. We need to stop this sinking ship before it actually becomes a ship that's sinking. As far as revenues go, because yeah, Guild Wars 2, it's stable as far as the revenues go in terms of the 15 million, but seeing that big of a drop off would make anyone really concerned. I mean, I would be very surprised if they're not looking at these financials, and when they saw the financials originally and they were like, yeah, this is not a good thing. We need to fix this. We need to figure out and get our asses in gear and get this really fixed. So,
On the flip side of things, the other eyebrow raiser for me was WildStar was actually
yes.
up, and quite a bit. Now, quite a bit here is relative, of course, because we're talking about, Guild Wars having an abysmal quarter with 15,000 million Korean won. And we're talking about WildStar having, wow, a damn good quarter based on its history at 2,000 million Korean won, so just a little bit shy of 2 million US dollars.
Yeah.
So it's relative here that when we're talking, but on the WildStar side of things, that is just shy of doubling what it had in quarter one. Seems like the Steam launch really freaking helped here, or at least put an influx of people that spent some money. I'm going to be really interested, though, to see next quarter's numbers when the Steam launch is now 6 months away, and what type of retention and what type of numbers. I think I'm still. We made our predictions on if WildStar even sees the end of the year. I think I'd have to go back and watch, but I think I remember I said I think it'll last this year, but it won't last too long into 2017. And I'm sorry, making $2 million in a quarter just isn't going to be enough to stick around as any MMO, no matter how little your costs are, particularly in NCSoft's portfolio.
Yeah, especially when NCSoft's portfolio has 15,000 Korean won as its second low in
Fifteen
Guild Wars
thousand
2.
million Korean
Yeah,
won.
million. Yeah, million Korean won. And so that's really a telling sign with WildStar. It's sort of that one game that's sort of an exception when you look at their portfolio, that you're like, it stands out because it's so low, but at the same time, the Steam community seemed to have gotten behind the game, at least temporarily, because it did get a really nice rise out of it. And that's why I say Steam is a big player. I mean, if you get your free-to-play game some life from Steam, it's definitely going to help you out financially. And so when it really comes down to it, do I think that WildStar prolonged its life because of this? I don't really think so. I,
No.
I just I just really don't. I think it's such a small amount of money for NCSoft, and Carbines went through so many troubles as of late, that I just don't think that the players will stick around long enough for them to maybe recover, because they just don't have enough people, I don't think, at this point, and enough direction to really get content in the game at a quick enough speed and at a substantial amount to keep these revenues going. But it's going to be a very interesting third quarter, because that's really going to tell the tale of how long will WildStar last, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I keep running the numbers through multiple different conversion sites because it just seems like so low to me. When you talk about, and I just ran it, 2,203 million Korean won in second quarter of 16 for WildStar, and that comes up to just shy of 2 million bucks for 3 months on an MMO, you're not going to last long. And particularly when that is double what you did the previous quarter, just shy of being double. It's a dangerous situation for WildStar. I hate personally to see it go because I think the game does some things nicely. I have my gripes with it too, but I hate seeing new IPs fail.
Yeah,
That hurts me. That hurts me deep. It cuts me
me
deep.
Yeah, me too. And it's one of those things where even though I had a huge amount of gripes with it, I mean, I'm not going to be dishonest here. It was still something that I wish to see, go along more, just to see how much it would develop and what it would turn into. Because it's one of those things right now where I don't really play MMOs really hardcore initially when they first release anymore. I wait for them to mature a bit
Right.
because MMOs need to mature. And yeah, it's great to build that with the community and get that sort of community involvement within building an MMO from its initial infancy. But if a game can't make it past its infancy, we can't really see its true potential. And a lot of people say WildStar is a good game. It's just there's a lot of things that it needs to sort of grow up with that I don't think it will get the chance to. And it's really sad, especially for Carbine and especially for their employees who might, not really have a secure job and they need to start sort of getting their resumes up to date and stuff like that, especially if their quarter three is another bad sign. But even then, I mean, if I was working there, I would still get my resumes up to date just because of the fact of
I am
seeing heroes and
sure they have
villains.
been up to date for a while.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
And it is important to note that even though Steam did boost things a bit, they did not peak above where they did the quarter they went free to play. That is still
Okay.
their high water mark. So they didn't make it back to there. So it's not like they picked up a whole new, half of an audience. They were close. They were close. Only about 400 million Korean won off, but
Yep.
they didn't quite make it back to where they were when the game first went free to play. So it's going to be an interesting couple of months, I think, for WildStar heading into 2017 and beyond. NCSoft, hey, if you bought stock in NCSoft, all right, you probably made a little bit. I don't think you made a ton this quarter, but you made a little bit. And if you're making something, at least you're investing on the right side of the board.
Yep.
All right, let's jump to Grinding Gear Games, Path of Exile. We had a chance this week to sit down with Path of Exile's lead developer, Chris Wilson, and kind of chat about Atlas of Worlds. It's the upcoming content update for Path of Exile, the MMO free-to-play ARPG, Loot Fest, if you will. Are you a big Path of Exile guy?
I hop in it from time to time, but I don't even think I'm up to date with all the content in terms of actually playing it. I do follow it a lot, and I wish I was more involved with it, but for some reason, the combat, it just feels a little bit more, and I hate to use the word lockdown or clunky than Diablo does, and I like Diablo's sort of feel. And so when I go to that game and it feels a little bit different, it throws me off a lot. But I might hop in eventually and give it another go because I do know that they have done some performance tweaks and whatnot. So maybe some of my gripes have been, fixed. But it's a great game. So yeah.
Yeah, and I have the same problem with ARPGs that most people have, is that I can only take the loot grind fest for so long, and then I stop playing for a while, and then I come back to it. It's not something I play every single day. A Diablo, a Path of Exile, a Torchlight, any of those just grinded out loot fests, ramp up your difficulty and see what you can do. So I play those in spurts, and Path of Exile is definitely one of those for me. I play it in spurts. But I love where Atlas of Worlds is headed. Where it's headed. So first off, we got the technical stuff. All right, great. And this really may not affect many people that are listening here, but depending on where you are in the world, this may be particularly good news. Multi-threading in the game engine is being improved, so all cores of a CPU will be utilized a lot better than they previously did. You're going to notice that probably big fights, lots of effects on the screen, that type of stuff. So for our friends overseas in, areas like China, this is huge for them, Zach. This is huge for them.
Yeah, I mean With Grinding Gear Games, I said it on Free to Play Weekly. They make every single developer out there look really lazy with all their updates. I mean, they constantly are pumping in not only performance tweaks, not only latency tweaks, not only content, but they just do it at such a good pace that anyone I feel that is playing Path of Exile very actively, they get a little bit burnt out, and then a new content update launches and they're right back into it. It's a really good flow, and they've definitely mastered that.
So here's the big stuff that I like, the actual gameplay. They're focusing on Endgame, which is not something we normally see as a primary focus with an ARPG. It's normally about increasing the number of maps, maybe a new difficulty mode, some new loots, that type of deal. But Grinding Gear Games has looked at players playing through the story content, right? Which you could do in about, I don't know, 12, 15 hours. You could blow through that story at a leisurely pace. You could certainly do it faster if you were all after speed. But after that, the game becomes what it is. Grind, 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 grind. So what they want to do, and this is a quote from Wilson, we wanted to raise the quality of Endgame to the same quality level as the story content of the game by adding its own lore and story elements to it and having better progression mechanisms. That's pretty sweet. They wanted to give players, quote, give them specific stuff to do right now. They didn't want to add new maps to the leveling experience that, experienced players are only going to play if they start over in a league or something like that. And yeah, we already have multiple difficulty types. So they're going to put the Atlas of Worlds in there, a chart of 100 linked maps grouped together by theme, so like deserts and, spider-infested forests. Now, they're similar to maps everybody's already seen in-game, so kind of, on that one for me. But they at least went in and did tweak them up a bit, and Wilson says that the artists really did a nice job utilizing assets they already had, but brightening them up to make them look new. He particularly liked the mountain ledges, I think. So all this content may be being reused, but what you do is you go to the Atlas of Worlds, and you end up having to work your way through all these interconnected points, these over 100 points of linked maps, working through its own lore, its own content. And you get to the higher tiers of the maps, the more difficult they become. When you complete a map, you get a plus 1% drop rate bonus on all the other maps. So you don't want to just rush to the center, right? You want to complete all those extra maps around there. What do you got at the center, Zach? I know it's your question. What's at the center? Why work my way to the center? 4 maps in the middle, each with powerful guardians, a Hydra, a Phoenix, a Chimera, and a Minotaur. Behind them, the shadowy masterminds engineering the whole story, the Shaper. So he dwells in the center of Atlas in a tier 16 world, the maximum possible difficulty that they say, Grinding Gear says only the most dedicated players are ever going to reach this. I love this. This is a huge thumbs up for me to Grinding Gear Games for implementing this type of focus on endgame content rather than just the feel of, because this patch this update could very easily have been, we're going to dump a whole bunch of new maps in there with some new loot, go ahead. And if you took a 30,000 foot view of it, that's essentially all this is, right? A bunch of new maps linked by theme with some new loots and some new bosses. But the way they've constructed it into like this own little lore and story driven content and incentive to actually go and do all of it, not just tear through it. I love this focus for the late game players.
Yeah, I mean, so do I. It's really one of those things that I think a lot of developers need to realize is that reusing assets is fine as long as you do it in an imaginative way. Like with Path of Exile, what they're doing, what Guild Wars 2 did with the Fractals of the Mist, which I find amazing. As long as you do it in a certain way and you make it challenging, you make it rewarding, a lot of players I don't think are going to have a big issue with it. And then on top of that, Grinding Gear's like, we're going to throw even more new maps on top of that as well. And so it's really one of those things where they're just sort of amplifying the amount of stuff that you're able to do to progress your character, to extend the already absurd amount of depth that that game has. And they're doing it in a way that's not making it overly complex. They're making it so it's just sort of an addition on top of what you've already been doing within Path of Exiles in terms of the depth that your character has. and how you could sort of further that. And it's a really, really masterful way to get players engaged, even with content that maybe is not the most original, but it's still original enough because they tweaked it that a lot of people are still going to see new, different areas and like, wow, that's new and this is new. And they're not going to feel like it's just the same old thing. So that's definitely a really good thing.
Now, there's also changes going on the gear front here, and with essences. Now, and I'm not going to get too deep into this because if you don't play Path of Exile, and if you haven't sunk a fair amount of time into Path of Exile, if I get too deep into this, you'll shut the damn show off. But basically, what you need to know is that there's now gear tweaks that are actually themed around certain areas. So you could pick up a bone helmet that boosts minion damage, but you can only find it in a graveyard area of the Atlas. So it provides a specific reason to go to specific areas of the Atlas. Upgrading your equipment and shaper orbs, there are tweaks coming to all of that stuff. They don't want to mess with things too much, but they do understand that, yeah, there is some frustration in the game is so damn customizable, but are some issues with trying to upgrade those later tiers of your gear. So Wilson's aware of that, that issues players are facing maxing out their items, and his team are doing what they can to, quote, modify the experience with new content to address player concerns and give them reasons to want that new shiny loot while not making lesser loot totally obsolete. A major emphasis of this challenge league, Wilson says with a chuckle, is to make rares great again, owing to the fact that rare items with their random stats are viewed as far less desirable than uniques with predetermined stats. It's just they're hitting all the right marks. And you go and you read the comments on our site and on everybody else's sites. People that play Path of Exile are saying things like, Keck says, holy crap, this is seriously the best expansion by far, can't frickin' wait. Dark20XX, not going back to Path of Exile unless they implement an adventure mode like in D3, and people already said Prophecy League, it's already there, buddy. Lagwin says, seems like a good way to utilize lower level maps and have some structure in what other maps you find, more likely to find the map you're running with a chance to get one the next step. Dave says this has to be about the best type of update for a game that requires you to gear up and get stronger the longer you play. Now being able to really use your high-powered gear on a whole new atlas of content will make leveling up to mid to high 90s a lot less tedious and more enjoyable. And I couldn't agree more, Zach. Grinding gear games, you get a huge thumbs up from me. I'm really, really looking forward to Atlas of Worlds.
Yeah, they get a 5 out of 5 from me too. I mean, there's really nothing more they could do to really just sort of get their players engaged and really feel like the money that they're dumping into the game itself is just really going to good causes. So yeah, it's a really good job.
Yep. Now they talk a big game. Let's revisit it when it's implemented and see how it actually works. Before we head on over to the weekly bombs, a couple of weeks ago we talked about how could you fix a game's community if it was, a bit toxic and try and keep it from getting there. So, in response, somebody sent me an email asking a question, and of course, I figured I'd bring it to the show, and let's tackle this one. Let's fix bots and exploiters, Zach. Yes! We're going to fix it all. We're going to rid the MMO world of bots and exploiters entirely. So, and this kind of came off of another topic. Riders of Icarus laid out a plan, because that game has a serious problem with that. So to handle spammers, they're adding several chat restrictions have been implemented while they work on a better filter system. More communication with the weekly banned characters report. They've removed 5,000 spammers, farmers, botters, and hackers. They'll be continuing with bans as well as implementing other measures, such as adding other GMs to patrol new GMs to patrol the servers like beat cops, using tools to help find exploiters and remove them, and a new report system being implemented. It is no secret that these are problems every MMORPG faces.
Yes.
At some point, some games just get it worse than others. Could this be done in a more effective way, or is literally the best plan we have to add as many GMs as your payroll can do and try and keep your filtering and your detection tools as up to date as possible? Is there something else we could do here, Zach?
I honestly don't really see too much in this regard. I mean, with Ion, I played that back in the day, and it was really one of those games that was somewhat grindy back in its vanilla version, and a lot of people ended up botting because of that. I'm not gonna lie here, I used the bot too, and it was really,
Oh.
yep,
That's how
yep.
you beat the Elder Scrolls Online.
No, I don't use bots anymore. But back in the day with Ion, I mean, that game was such a grind fest that it just, oh my god, I just could not bear it. But it was one of those things where the GMs would go around and they would literally ban people that they saw were botting. And it was such a public thing. People would follow the GMs around and they would see like a sort of like a volcanic explosion on the character itself, and then the character would be banned after that point. But one of the things that using that botting software really showed me was that the software itself, and it's probably even more advanced now, it's extremely advanced. I mean, these things will literally vary up the different paths that they take. They will record pre-recorded routes that you've done yourself by just walking around a zone, and it will aggro onto particular mobs and attack those mobs, use potions at a certain percentage. It'll even sometimes vary up those percentages just to make it so it doesn't seem like it's a reoccurring thing. And so these types of programs, they get more and more advanced, and with that, I don't really think that unless a company invests a ton of money, like we're talking a ton of money here, I don't think that there's really a way to combat it other than increasing filters, as far as not trying to punish your people that are working within the terms of service, but people that aren't, that are just spamming constantly. That's really the only way I could really see it working. I think the worst example of trying to fix this issue is, I'm sorry, Black Desert, where everything that is in
God.
the game, everything that's in the game, it punishes people that are playing the game fairly. It's so annoying to see games do that. And even with Guild Wars 2, Guild Wars 2's free-to-play model punishes people that are playing the game fairly. My friend who bought the game could not do anything with his stuff for 5 days. So a paying customer is being punished for the acts of people who are breaking the terms of service. Stuff like that causes people to retaliate, to really hate this particular style of, I guess you could say, anti-bot techniques. And when it really comes down to it, developers just need to realize that it's going to happen, and they just need to try their best to combat it without basically limiting other players who are following the game's rules. And it's I don't think it's solvable. I just think that they, like you said, need to just hire a bunch of GMs on, make that their entire job, and just go at it.
What do you think about bringing it into the real world though? Something like Epic Games did when they sued that creator of like a very powerful Paragon hack. Now technically, I know the lawsuit was initiated because of copyright claims, and the creator disputed them, which invited a lawsuit. But the lawsuit then also became irreparable harm to the developer. I'm trying to find it here. I'm trying to find exactly what charges there were here. Irreparable harm because of restitution and damages, costs incurred from the lawsuit. Anyway, it started as a YouTube thing because the person created it made videos to try and advertise it, and it turned into a YouTube claim. Developer, here it is, currently seeking reparations for copyright infringement, breach of contract, and unfair competition. Yeah, good luck with that in court. But what do you think about something like that, bringing this shit into real life? Now, I know you're limited by geographic location, jurisdiction, the laws of the land in the area, but if you have a severe hacking problem in the United States, a few lawsuits might set that one right pretty quickly, at least in that region. Or is that overstepping? Is that going too far?
I think that's a waste of time, quite honestly, because as soon as one shuts down, another one's going to pop back up. And it's probably even the same software, even. And it's really one of those things where these types of people who make this software are so adamant in making it prominent within games because, of course, you could purchase premium versions and all that. and it's a business. They want to make
I
money.
almost spilled water all over my lap here. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
No problem. And it's like what you pointed with the international law. And that's such a huge deal because there's a lot of cases where a company will try and do something legally, or a person will try and do something legally to someone that's in another country, and they just can't do it because either the laws
Yeah.
conflict, or if
Yep.
someone is not domestic, the laws differ. It's really, really a case of cost benefit analysis. How much is it going to cost you,
Yep.
and what are you going to gain from it? And I don't think you really gain that much from doing this, other than maybe amplifying your brand recognition of, oh, those guys are actually trying really hard to combat this issue. And so I think Paragon's probably going to try to do that once. They're probably not going to do it again because they're going to realize the costs associated, and they're like, well, at least now everyone knows that we're going to try our best, and we're going to leave it at that. But it's honestly not going to gain us that much in terms of revenue, so we're not really going to deal with it too much.
Yeah,
And they're going to find other cost-effective ways.
I liken that to IP and copyright protection. Like everybody
Yeah.
was all pissed off about the Elder Scrolls going after Scrolls for potential infringement there, but and nobody, I don't think anybody expected the Elder Scrolls to win that case.
Of course.
But I get it from a legal standpoint of if you don't try to defend your copyright, then when your copyright does directly get infringed, you don't have a leg to stand on when you try to defend it. So I think the same thing applies here. Put up the front of here's what we're trying to do, and get your community to rally behind that. But ultimately, I kind of agree with you. I don't think there's really a better system besides do what you can with the software to detect those types of things. Put more beat cops on the street, GM style, but you know they put more beat cops on the street, and Jack the Ripper still got away. So who knows? You know, you do the best you can. I remember distinctly though when Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn first launched. For like the first month, there was a really great problem with botters. You would just stand in an area; they were gathering bots, and you would just see somebody like warp into like the middle of a rock cliff and hit a mining node that was just outside the rock cliff as you're running to go get it, and then all of a sudden they disappear. I was like, oh gee, I wonder if that's a bot. I'm not sure. It just warped into a spot you can't possibly get to, but fun stuff.
Ion was interesting with that too. I mean, everyone who I knew was botting or buying gold or whatever the case may be, because the systems were set up so harshly where you kind of felt like you needed to. And so games could also learn from the punishments of not only dying in Ion was that punishing because you lost a lot of Kina,
Yes, you did.
but then you also lost the fact that you were trying to grind, they have to walk all the way back, and the XP gain was terrible. I mean, I ran the Fire Temple so many times that even till today, I could probably walk you through it in my head because implants it. That's how much I ran the Fire Temple. And so systems like that are just bound to pop a lot of bots, and game developers can certainly learn from that particular aspect, but I don't think it's really fixable to the grandest extent. So,
Well, we're going to put it to the audience at the end of the show, just like we did Toxic Communities, but let's get started with the weekly bombs. Go ahead, Mr. Sharps, with your snazzy new haircut.
I'm gonna give a massive A bomb to Sean Murray of
Oh boy, No
Hello
Man's Sky.
Games. Yes, No Man's Sky, because there's not only a huge Reddit post of all his lies and all the different citations for him, so I mean it's definitely legit. But the fact is, the guy went on stage back when they originally revealed it, sold everyone a Ferrari and showed them it numerous times even after that, and what people pre-ordered ended up being a Prius. And this is even something that would make Ubisoft extremely offended, because Ubisoft, they just did it graphically, and a little bit of gameplay elements here and there too. But this was a complete 180. I mean, this was this absurd, and I'm very happy everyone's sort of pointing this out, because yes, it's an indie game, but it was sold as a AAA title. People need to get that distinction and just completely get rid of the fact it's indie because of how they sold it. You don't just say you're indie, go on multiple stages at E3 with Sony propping you up, and still try and sell. Oh, we're indie. You got to be soft on us. No, that's not the case. $60 should be better than that. And what's at the center of the universe? I'm going to spoil it for you because it's a waste of time. It's a repeat of the entire game. It's terrible. Terrible game. Terrible game.
I did read the Reddit post. I didn't read the original Reddit post because it got taken down by the author, but then somebody was able to grab what was there and repost it. So I read the repost actually just today. I do own the game. I personally haven't had a chance to play it yet. My 12-year-old son has played it for the first time yesterday. I'm kind of staying away from an opinion on this one because I wasn't watching No Man's Sky enough to see like what it was hyped to be. And then I haven't played it to compare. So, but I did read the post. There's certainly some things that, raise a few eyebrows for me, but I'm going to reserve opinion just because I'm not as in-depth on my research on that one yet.
Just don't rush to the center. Just play the game as it's explorable. That's pretty much it.
I'm going to give a dub bomb to Twin Sagas. Not the game. Not the game. Check out the game on the first look if you want to. Posted late last week. But I'm going to give it to the first mount that I got in-game because... Did you check it out after I told you to, Zach?
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
At the end of the first look, I showed to you my very first mount has an asshole. Yep. It actually has an asshole. So, dub bomb to Twin Saga giving mounts... realistic assholes. From the viewers, Elusive X Treasure, longtime contributor, says the bomb to Rift after us talking about the expansion last week. I am so psyched. I don't know why, but Rift expansions always excite me the most. That Drake mount was a major shut up and take my money moment for me, and then I found out it glides. So awesome. As for the price point, WoW's Legion Deluxe Edition was $89, and that game's twice as old as Rift. Just food for thought. As a bonus, my 11-year-old just started playing it with me. It makes it so evident how much of a little me he is. Customization is why I love the game so much. I'm not a min-maxer, so being able to create insanely fun hybrids is a great boon, even if it's not the top build. Go ahead, Zach.
Yep. Johnny Jeb says, enough with the CCGs. We've had the same problems with MOBAs. Market was filled with them, man, 2 to 3 years back, and even now you see 1 or 2 popping up every few months, but not like back in the days with announcements and releases every damn week. Back to the card games. Stop. Seriously, don't. What's wrong with you? They are typically the same, but with a different strategy. No, it's bullshit, mate. All right? Gwent should have been left as the Witcher minigame. It is the only card game that I ever enjoyed but you really have to milk the fuck out of this too?
I'm with Johnny on everything except for Gwent. Gwent, I think, was a direct result of the audience saying this should be a standalone game.
Exactly.
I just get the feeling that CD Projekt Red doesn't abuse their things like that. But everything else, I agree with. I'm done with CCGs for a while. Wilfredo Rivera, A-bomb for Black Desert Online. What the fuck are they thinking? It's already tough enough to deal with the dreaded RNG weapon leveling, but now subs and shit? I get it. Box sales are down and you want profits and numbers to increase. This does not bode well for Black Desert Online. Some of the best combat, graphics, and gameplay, even if it's a bit more hardcore, and this is the monkey wrench you want to throw? Stop learning from EA and BioWare. Wow. So, was that you or a cousin? Is that somebody related to you?
I don't know. It must have been multiple me's.
Go ahead.
Because, yeah, the house that always wins says A-bomb to Pearly Abyss. I think he meant maybe Pearl or is joking about it. And Dom Kakeo for finally making Black Desert Online pay to win. I knew they were going to do it as they were drip feeding the player base itty bits of pay to win since launch. First was the ghillie suit, which gave those who bought it an advantage in PvP. Then came the so-called value pack, which is basically a subscription service that gave those who paid a huge discount in the auction house fees. Finally comes the decision to allow cash shop items to be sold on the auction house, which basically amounts to whales being able to buy hundreds of millions of in-game silver for real-world money. Bear in mind, the reason players accepted Black Desert going buy to play in the first place was Dom's promise, and they would not implement the same pay-to-win BS that plagued the Korean and Russian versions. Well, it seems like we have all been taken for a ride. False advertising for the win. Enjoy the 50-something dollars I spent on this game, Dom. I hope you choke on it.
Yeah, your camera all of a sudden got fuzzy. I don't know what happened over there. But, yeah, I'm not going to chime in on the whole pay to win. Obviously, I haven't played the game enough to make that type of call. It seems like you have, if you agree. But I do agree that even the changes that they've made, whether or not I think they're pay to win, I don't have the experience in game to make that call. But just the changes that they've made do kind of piss me off that they went the whole box route, because they ended up not implementing things to justify a box shop or a box price, and then ended up putting those things back in after the price. I do feel the exact same as the house always wins on that aspect.
Yeah, my thing is, just really quickly, pay to win for me is when you can buy something in a cash shop that you can't get as a free player. And that gives you an advantage. And so to me, this isn't a true definition of pay to win, but it's certainly pay to super progress your character. I mean, it's basically putting you at the top echelon of players as far as gear goes, being able to buy all that currency, because that's all the game is based off of. It's not really based off the level. I mean, it is, but that's not the main factor. The gear is so, so important, and it costs so, so much money and time to get that gear to the top level. And so if you could pay your way to the top immediately, it's not good at all. Not good at all.
Dimitrico says, I know you say Staparu is a good way to find out information about Revelation online, but there's another YouTuber named Cry, Cryy, who put out a lot of information about it. Thank you for that, Dimitrico. We definitely take a look personally, and we love plugging other YouTubers on the show to provide information for things maybe we just don't have access to yet in the West.
Yep.
Go ahead, Zach.
Private Pingus says, I've been playing the Elder Scrolls Legends for 3 days, and the difference between Hearthstone and the Elder Scrolls Legends is the meta. The Elder Scrolls Legends is more control, and Hearthstone is more aggro meta. Also, you generate gold from doing arenas. Top of that, you can afford pretty much any deck after a few hours playing with my experience. And I want to sort of amend what I said last week, because I did find out that my quests were bugged. Go figure.
There you go.
I logged out with like 10 gold, came back with like 50 or 60, and then I started getting a lot more quests after that, and I started generating a lot more gold, and the game actually is quite rewarding once I got past that particular point. As far as the decks go, though, I don't really get why people focus, oh, you get a lot of decks initially. You get decks initially in like every single game. They just make you go through a certain process to get them in this one. So I like what they're doing with Elder Scrolls Legends. I hope that they fix the issues I had with like the blurring and whatnot, but it's certainly a top tier card game, I think, right now.
Question of the week last week. Tell me the funniest MMO disaster you or your friends ever had. It could be a Leroy Jenkins type story in game or anything else you just couldn't stop laughing over when your friends pulled a bonehead move. Wilfredo Rivera says, question of the week. Back in my Ultima Online days, we had things called dial-up internet. Ooh. Long story short, after 5 days of playing my warrior, I racked up a massive telephone bill over $1,000. Thank the gaming gods for broadband. I don't know if that's funny. My parents would have killed me back in those days. Killed me. Go ahead, Zach.
Yami Kami says, could you please elaborate on where I'm supposed to write my question of the week? Here in the YouTube comments, or is there a form for it? And yes, where can I find it? Best course of action would be to put the link for the question link in the description.
You can put it right in the YouTube comments. That's where I scrape them from. I also scrape them from the comments on the actual free-to-play cast post on MMOBomb. I don't go to the forums for those types of things. I get the comments off of our post on the site and the comments straight from YouTube. Hope that helps. On my side, I remember that a friend and I were playing Phantasy Star Online for the Dreamcast. So this was on dial-up, right? Mm-hmm. And at the time, my wife is pregnant with our first son, and my brother's girlfriend is pregnant with his first kid.
see where this is going.
And so it's like 2 in the morning, and a buddy of mine, Celfius, who's been on this show many, many times in years past, Celfius and I are playing Phantasy Star Online. It's like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and the phone, or the Phantasy Star Online disconnects. And we're like, oh, shit, all right. And so we boot it back up and jump in. 5 minutes later, it disconnects again. I'm like, God damn it, come on. Hook it up, get back in. 5 minutes later, it disconnects. And I'm like, I wonder if somebody's trying to call. But it's 2:30 in the damn morning. You know, who's going to be calling at that point? So we leave it unplugged for a few minutes. It's a call from my brother. His girlfriend's in labor. They take her to a hospital. We wake my wife up, and all three of us go to the hospital. We're there all night, and my nephew is born. My first nephew is born. We go home. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning. We try to get some sleep. We sleep for like an hour or so, and all of a sudden, my wife gets up and bolts to the bathroom. Her water broke. Our son was born that same day. Our first child was born that same day. So cousins born on the exact same day because of the dial-up. Yeah. That's not why they were born on the same day. Another fun thing I did in game one time on World of Warcraft, this was back in Burning Legion, and my wife had just started playing, and I totally convinced her that my mount was a 2-person mount. And so I flew up in the air outside Tempest Keep, and I had her mount up and fly above me, and I made this big deal of like arranging it perfectly so that she was, you know, so far above me and right above me, and turn your mount a little and I'll turn mine a little. Got to make sure the seats are matched up, and then dismount and you'll fall right on my mount. I spent like 10 minutes setting this up, and it's on TeamSpeak, just for the moment that I hit record and watch as her character comes plummeting down past me and straight into the ground. Fantastic stuff. So
Funny.
go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, my recent moment with MMO disasters. I could go. There's a lot of random things I could talk about that happen in MMOs because I played so many of them with a lot of communities, and I'm sure you have a lot more stories as well. But one thing that really just immediately pops up in my mind is veteran dungeons in the Elder Scrolls Online. Me and my group of friends were playing it. We were struggling to get through one of them because we were low champion level, not really the champion level we were supposed to be, because we wanted a challenge, and also we knew we could get through it. It just would take a little bit of time. And we got to the last boss. It's a golden sort of like crab boss that goes around the room, has random elements that he does, and you have to counter him within basically different ways. Like red, you just have to move out of the fire. He shoots fireballs at you, and you just can't get close to him. Lightning, he shoots lightning in the vicinity of where he's at, and he spawns ads. You got to clear the ads and then go out and attack him. And then poison, you just got to basically heal through it. And so I was the healer, and it was interesting that I even wanted to play healer in that game because it was just so fun. And I kept getting locked in the door, and we all kept getting locked in the door. So like we would pull the boss and immediately get trapped by the door boss, and the door boss kept wiping us over and over because if it wasn't me, it was someone else. And then we finally got the boss down to like 1 or 2% health, and then one of my friends line of sighted. He got stuck on something and he couldn't get back in line of sight before he died, and then it's all crumbled, and then we wiped again, and then we got stuck by the door boss again. So it was this rampant door boss wipes over and over again because the door just shut so quickly. Like if you pulled the boss, the door was closed like immediately, and the room was literally like this much between the door and where the boss aggroed. So you got to be ready, like as a group, balled up, going through that door, unless that door was gonna bite you. And it was funny. It was a very interesting moment of us just constantly wiping because of this door boss, not because the actual boss, but because we couldn't get everyone inside, just because of the door.
Question of the week for next week. You guys talked about communities and how you would fix toxic communities. Now I want you to talk, this should be now. Now talk about exploiters, bots, gold sellers. How would you control the flood of chat spam and protect your game's content? Or do we literally have the best that's available? You just got to utilize those tools to a better degree. Let us know in the comments below on YouTube, or in the comments below on the post on MMOBomb.com. Don't forget to put your weekly bombs in there. Dub bomb for something great, A bomb for something terrible. Until next week, Zach, where can everybody find you?
Everyone can find me on Twitter at Zach Sharps. Starting to be posting videos again, so if you want to watch some of my random personal content, that will be the place where you'll be immediately updated on when that will be coming out. So yeah, twitter.com/ZachSharps.
Yeah, your camera went all fuzzy and never came back, but that's all right. We got most of the show in with a clear Zach Sharps and a new haircut. My name's Mike Byrne, aka Magic Man. You can follow me on Twitter, MagicMan1, MagicKMANN1, or of course come on over to MMOBomb.com. Check out all the great videos, giveaways, content, and articles we've got there for you. Until next time, stay safe. We'll see you on the servers.